What's your long-term goal?
Eliminating economics before it eliminates human society.
So you want to eliminate the thing you do?
I actually wrote in Debunking Economics that if all economists on the planet committed harakiri, including me, the world would be a better place.
You think the economists are leading us into the financial crisis, not the greed of humanity?
They give us the ammunition to do it.
The way I felt about the financial crisis, now I'm feeling about climate change for exactly the same reason. That's where economists have been vital, because they've trivialised the whole thing. They've got no idea of what climate change actually is, because they come from the perspective that capitalism is the world's most flexible social system and it can cope with anything. Therefore, climate change can't be a problem.
It would be interesting to get your view on what is going on in the UK right now.
We revisit now our first chat with Steve Keen, author, friend of the show, and a brilliant economist who first predicted the 2008 financial crash. Now, unusually for an economist, he's telling us stop listening to economists, certainly about the climate crisis, of which he thinks they are massively trivializing, and we need to be listening to the climate experts. We also talk about how trade unions might actually be a good thing for business and why corporate behavior in the UK could probably take a leaf out of the German model. Anyway, check it out.
Hello, and welcome to Business Without Bullshit. I'm Andy Ori, and alongside me is my co-host Pippa Sturt.
Hi, Andy.
And today we are joined by Steve Keen. Good name, Steve Keen. How you doing?
The usual story, if the number of times people have said, "Oh, you're keen to me," it was I got £1 for each. I'd probably own the Bank of England.
I'm just pleased that I can pronounce it. That's what I'm happy about.
It's easy.
And it's an enthusiastic name.
It is very keen.
You don't want Steve. What's the opposite of keen? Miserable.
Thistle-thwaffle.
You wouldn't.
He wouldn't be able to pronounce
You
that.
definitely wouldn't want that as a surname. Down a telephone in France, you'd be there for hours. Steve is a professor of economics and an author of numerous books, his latest being The New Economics, and you were winner of the Revere Award from the Real World Economics Review for being the economist who first anticipated and gave public warning of the global financial collapse, and whose work is most likely to prevent another one in the future. Small.
Okay, so you're the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, I'm back in the coal mine
Australian
again because,
in the coal mine.
Unfortunately, the canaries didn't get to take over the discipline. You've still got the flat-footed eagles like Bernanke and co in charge of the damn thing. So my warning went totally without effect on policy and has totally no effect afterwards on the nature of economics.
I think no effect is probably slightly unfair on yourself, but all of our impacts are negligible unless you're, for some reason, Kanye West or something. You know,
yeah,
it's like
that's the thing. Yeah, I should be a rap artist. I'd do much better.
Yeah, well,
Is it really infuriating though to keep saying these things?
Incredibly
and have
infuriating
people
because
ignore
you just you see the saying, "There's a cliff." You're going straight towards a cliff.
Stop being
There's a cliff. There's a cliff. Hi, how's it at the bottom of the cliff? You know, here we go again. I'm feeling the way I felt about the financial crisis. Now I'm feeling about climate change for exactly the same reason.
Yeah, and when did you predict 2008? It all went bananas.
The starting date of the crisis is actually August 14, 2007. That's the day we're speaking of the France. This is the day the Banque Nationale de Paris shut down 3 of its accounts, which were they stopped withdrawals from 3 of their accounts, which were linked into the subprime market. They simply couldn't have valuation. So that was the shock that began the whole thing. And I started warning of it in December of 2005.
Oh, wow.
Quite circumstantial as to why it was then. But I'd say December 23 was my first warning of the coming crisis.
Well, I mean, we always like to ask our guests, what's keeping you up at night at the moment then?
Potential extinction of the human race.
Do you, I take us...
That's a good one.
Yeah, that works.
Got your attention.
I think I'd keep up.
She's got a sick sense of humour, this one.
I'd stay up at night for that one.
I would plot a graph and I would say that we're too dug in now. It's not going to wipe us out. But more and more people would die, and this is how much we're going to do about it. And at some point, that's 2 points to me. But at some point, enough will be happening in this country that even if I'm reduced to living in a hut of berries, we survive.
That's the thing. It probably won't be us, right? Or it's going to take a lot for it to be us. It's going to be loads of other people in other countries that get it first.
Oh, it's handy being an artist.
I love the sound of optimism in the morning.
No, but it will just be. You're right. It's just that feeling of everything's a little more tarnished than it was last year.
Like I'm going to give you my scariest.
Let's have it.
I read the academic literature on this stuff. not just what economists write, which is bullshit, but I read the scientists as well. On that front, the most interesting person I've read is John G. Anderson. Now, you shouldn't take him seriously. He's obviously a crank. He's only the professor of atmospheric chemistry at Harvard University. And he only discovered the hole in the ozone layer back in the 18th. So you don't take him seriously. Obviously, he's a wanker, you know. Okay. His research focuses on the ozone layer. And he argues, and this is the scariest thing I've read about climate change, because everybody puts in a sea rise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is what you should care about. So this is the guy who discovered the hole in the ozone layer. He led the campaign. Well, didn't lead. He was one of the important people in leading the campaign to close the hole by cutting down CFCs back in the late 20th century. He argues that when we lose the Arctic summer sea ice, and that's not a question of if now, it's when. And it could be in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. The earliest estimates I've seen from scientists are we're going to lose it in 5 years. Others saying 20. Okay. When we lose it, the 3 circulation cells that determine the weather patterns in the northern hemisphere right now. So we have what's called the Hadley cell from 0 to 30 degrees, the Ferris cell from 30 to 60. Big circulation patterns in the atmosphere.
In Fahrenheit, you're in. Yeah.
Okay. No, this is degrees, north and south.
Degrees of altitude. Right. Okay.
That'll break down. There'll be a uniform cell in the northern hemisphere. Now, I'm going to say some other people say that won't happen until 2170. So this is, it's disputed, this particular claim. But he says when that happens, and he totally ignores what that might mean for humanity, and says that what will then happen is that storms that are currently restricted to what's called the troposphere, so the bottom 10 kilometres of the atmosphere,
typhoons,
they will penetrate the stratosphere and they will take moisture into the stratosphere. Okay, now that doesn't sound like much of a problem. The stratosphere is currently very dry. There's very little H2O in the stratosphere. Most of it's all that's in the troposphere. But what it's going to carry up there is going to be chlorine and bromide.
Oh, God.
And
where's he get that from? But anyway, let's carry on.
2017 article by this guy in
No, where's he get the chloride and the bromide
Well,
from?
Unfortunately, not just from humans. We produce a huge amount of it, of course, and it's a trace element in the... And it doesn't damage anything here. It gets into the stratosphere. He said it'll increase the rate of destruction of ozone by a factor of 100. But his point is, if this happens, then if the Arctic breaks now, which is the case of when, he says then that will also mean these storms take moisture and chlorine and bromide into the stratosphere, and they will destroy the ozone layer.
Well, it could be the end of the world then.
It could be the end of the world.
I hadn't thought it from the perspective of we could turn ourselves into Pluto, just like another crazy planet, the whole ecosystem, because I liked what George Carlin said, a very famous.
Carlin's great.
Fantastic. And he said, everyone's like, save the planet. So the planet's fine.
I know. We're fucked. That's
we're
right.
Fucked. But the planet's fine. The planet will sort it out. The planet doesn't give a shit.
Maybe 10,000 to a million years.
Yeah.
It will just be. I mean, one of my mates he's another professor of economics, but he did a degree in I think geology before he became an economist, and he really objects to people talking about what he calls the Anthropocene epoch, because an epoch is 50 million years, 20 million years.
Epoch means the end of the world.
No,
doesn't
epoch means a period.
Epoch is a period of time.
Okay. That they look back the Jurassic period.
Jurassic epoch
50
and
million.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. He said it's not. He said it's not going to be the Anthropocene epoch. We won't last enough.
We haven't been around that long.
Well,
what are we? The last few seconds before midnight. The human race.
When you look at it geologically, it's the Anthropocene event. This species turned up, 200,000 years ago, started building industrial civilizations or sedentary civilizations 12,000 years ago, and in 13,000 years wipes themselves out. So that is 13,000 years, not 13 million.
No. Yeah.
It'll be an event. It'll be virtually as fast
compared
as
to the dinosaurs were an absolute.
Oh no! It's when you say, and they ruled the earth for 150 million years. It's like you suddenly think about the British Empire. Oh, the British Empire ruled the what?
For 150, if we're lucky, not million. 150 years.
Yeah.
So that's that's the stuff we're ignoring. And that's not the sort of thing you should ignore.
But I genuinely don't get it. Because everybody, I don't have any kids, but I've got nieces. Everybody has another generation.
Yeah, that's
Whoever
right.
you are, there is another generation coming up and another one after that. And you want to see the people you love and care about and their offspring thrive. Why is it that it's so hard for us to go, okay, it might not benefit us in our lifetime, but it's going to benefit the lifetime of those people we care about or the people we care about?
Yeah, but we think about that about in terms of, not wanting to eat too much or take drugs or get too drunk.
No, but that's what the government
it's in
should
the
be
benefit
thinking.
of my family.
Rishi Sunak
but-
should be
Individual
thinking.
behaviour.
But
Not
then,
systemic,
then,
not collective.
then I just thought, fuck it, I'll have a burger and go to
I
Paris.
know, but Rishi Sunak should be thinking. Rishi Sunak, he's in theory, in control of this country. He should be thinking, I may have all the money in the world, and I really do, but I've got children that will die of cancer at the age of 50.
I think
because there's no
where
ozone
economists
there.
have been vital, because they've trivialised the whole thing. They've got no. Can I use French in this?
You can use.
Okay, they've got no fucking
language
idea of
you
what
like.
climate change actually is.
Yeah.
And because they come from the perspective that capitalism is the world's most flexible social system and it can cope with anything, therefore climate change can't be a problem. And therefore they've said, let's and they've trivialised the dangers. And then what people like, what they
The economists have trivialised the dangers.
Oh,
you feel?
totally.
Ah, interesting.
Because it doesn't help with making money, presumably.
They're sort of the wrong art form. It's a bit like a sort of, an accountant advising a graphic designer or whatever.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. And the thing is, economists have, they've weaseled their way into power in every part of society. You go to any major financial company, its boss is going to be an economist. It's going to have a chief economist advising him.
Really? In the really big companies?
Not so much in the might be, you'd like to get the Richard Bransons turn up there at the actual originators, but they'll surround themselves with staff.
Maybe we're making a mistake because we now and then we like to have an economist on the show to tell us what the hell's going on. So
I think clue.
But you want people. It's because if you're running a company, you want somebody who can, in theory, tell you what's going to happen in the next 20 years.
Yeah, and that's like when you're a chief in Africa back 10,000 years ago, you want a witch doctor who can tell you what the chicken entrails say about the future. So in that sense, economists are the chicken entrail readers of capitalism.
There's something fascinating in the way that you're made to feel shit about it. Not you personally, but this problem about new ideas, And I mean, I could give a sort of ridiculous example. Maybe it's that trickle-down economy would work if we didn't make people feel embarrassed about spending money, and we were a bit more like, spend your money, and just go for it, and you could be outlandish. But it's, it's all about the concern of how people perceive our behavior and how the little, because why do you feel, no one listened? No one can stop that juggernaut, can they?
The thing is, I'm trying to take the punch bowl away while the party is still going.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a major part of it.
But you can't. I'm just thinking nobody can stop the train, man. Can they? It doesn't matter how big you are.
You'd be fine if you were trying to add gin to the punch bowl, but you're trying to take it away.
I'm trying to take the gin out of the punch bowl.
Punch bowl stealer.
And that's the dilemma. And the thing is, we're not creatures that think systemically. Okay, we think about the events that surround us. That's what we actually.
I think about me.
Yeah, think about ourselves. Yeah. And we don't, and think the systemic stuff is just too complicated for most people, and they don't think
systemic means what? System.
The actual system. How does the system itself function? So economists get listened to because they're supposed to be experts on the system. They're not. Okay, but and that's the danger. If we had people who actually were experts on the system, they would have said, yeah, limits to growth, very accurate. That could happen. We've got to cut back on population growth. We've got to start changing from fossil fuels. That was back in 1972. Instead, what did the economists do? They totally derided limits to growth, said, ignore these bastards. We can grow at a rapid rate forever. And that told us, basically, the party we're in now can go on indefinitely. So let's continue the party. That's been their attitude.
It's something. It doesn't make sense, does it?
Not at all. But
we all know that you can't have a party without a hangover.
Very well said. I'm going to take that one away.
But the interesting thing is there are some economists and clever people. I mean, these are clever people. These aren't idiots who are like, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Just keep printing the money and let the dream go on. It's all an illusion.
I mean, clever people learning a dumb theory can turn up like people who follow Jonestown.
Yeah.
And that's the trouble. It takes
Jonestown. That's an American thing.
The Kool-Aid. You ever the Kool-Aid?
David Koresh, isn't it?
Drinking their own Kool-Aid.
Drinking the Kool-Aid,
it was poison.
So they've swallowed this theory, and it's incredibly convincing. I believed it when I was at high school, mainstream economics, and I was lucky to have a lecturer who was actually English. I think he was from Manchester. Who pointed out a flaw in the theory in first-year economics, and that flaw completely inverted. the advice of economics. Rather than saying you should abolish trade unions, it said you should hang on to them. They're necessary. Okay? And I thought, before I learnt this lecture, I thought getting rid of trade unions would be a good idea, make the labour market competitive. And he gives this perfectly legitimate mainstream explanation as to why that would be a bad idea. And I thought, holy hell, simply admitting that they're both trade unions and industrial concentrations, monopolies, whatever else, is enough to mean that rather than abolishing trade unions, you should hang on to them so long as you've also got monopolies or major industrial agglomerations.
It's a balance almost.
Yeah,
it's a
and that makes sense. It's a yin and yang thing. You have power on one side.
Well, one was created by the other. Don't ignore the laws of fate nature. Something made that necessary.
One of them balanced the other. Now, mainstream economics says you get rid of both of them, but it doesn't matter the sequence in which you do it. And of course, it's impossible to get rid of Richard Branson, so they get rid of the trade unions instead. When you put this, what's called the theory of the second best in, it says, well, no, if you got one and you got two and you get rid of one, you'll make welfare worse. Yeah. And I thought, this is crazy.
Well, say that. Okay.
If you have trade unions and you've got industrial organisations negotiating the wage, then according to what's called the theory of the second best, it goes back to the 1950s, in fact. A guy called Kelvin Lancaster invented the idea. Okay, so Kelvin worked out that if you're using strictly straight economic theory, but saying you have both a monopoly supplier of labour, so a trade union, facing a monopoly buyer, so an industrial organisation, if you got rid of one or the other, you necessarily made the welfare outcome worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
that makes logical sense.
But what have we done? We've abolished trade unions in the last 40 years. We've wiped them out.
I know.
Okay. Because we followed the simplified version of economic theory, so that's a good idea.
But let's take that further. I can hear my old man screaming at the radio now. But if you live through strikes and stuff, and
Yeah, but just to be clear, right?
But no, I want to hear. Yeah, well, no,
it's the threat of a strike that often works in that basis.
If you go back to Maggie Thatcher, right, who came in after the winter of discontent, right?
Every discussion.
Someone has to say Thatcher.
The first thing Maggie Thatcher did was increase everybody's pay by a fuck ton, so that nobody went on strike anymore.
Nobody struck.
Stroked.
But she increased pay for everybody, and everybody was then happy.
Oh my God, that was something positive about Maggie Thatcher.
Yeah, but my point being, trade unions worked.
What I wanted to ask is, that's a really interesting point. I'm just threading. So, the trade unions are quite strong in Australia.
No, they're not.
Not anymore, maybe. Not stronger than here.
That's not hard.
No, that's like the rest of the fucking world, apart from America.
What is the problem that we think that we have with trade unions, and what is the advantage? The advantage of trade unions is a balance, but why are you saying that? Why do you care whether there's trade unions?
Because you bargain over the wage. The wages. See, the conventional economic theory.
They have bargaining power.
Conventional economic theory says the wage simply reflects what they call the marginal product of labour. Okay, so whatever you contribute, whatever the last worker contributes to output is the wage that all workers get. Okay? And that's the theory, and we should let the market reach that point. Now, even if you accept that theory, and it's wrong empirically, and all sorts of other problems with it, if you accept that theory, and you say you've got monopoly buyers of labour, what they call monopsony on one side, and monopoly supplier of labour on the other, you will fall somewhere between one side or the other of that marginal product line. But if you get rid of the one side, if you get rid of the trade unions, you'll get the wage being less than the marginal product of labour. So workers are being ripped off, according to conventional theory.
It would be interesting to get your view on what is going on in the UK right now. So.
This comes down to what's the government's role in this society, and partly it's providing all the things which you want to be there for the private sector to function properly. So you want people to get to work, for example, and not go bankrupt getting to work. So you want a public transport system that works, that sort of thing.
That would be nice.
That would be nice, yeah. You want health, you want education, those sorts of things. And they're things which, if you make it profitable, then only the people who can afford to pay the price actually get it. And you end up with an uneducated bottom strata of society, which means you can't develop all the advanced technology you want. Okay?
Bottom strata.
It undermines the capacity to develop an advanced civilization. So that's a productive role of the public sector, is to provide the goods which you need everybody to have. Okay, otherwise you don't have a functioning society. Yeah. So that's You don't do that by spending less. Okay? You have to have a certain amount which is covered by government spending. When you have high government spending, you've also got to have high government taxation, because if you have high spending without taking the excess money the government creates out of circulation, you're going to have inflation, you're going to be importing too many goods, you have a trade deficit, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a reason for having a high taxing government, is because you also want to have a high spending government. If you look at what's happening in the Scandinavian countries, they've got a far higher rate of tax than here, because they also have a far higher rate of spending. And people might get lower, effective salaries out of that, but they know that all the basic stuff is covered. So,
Germany, Sweden, Norway, all these places, the taxes are, Social Security in Germany on any employee is 34% or something,
But
It's and I remember saying to my German colleagues, Manfred, saying, and what's the health system like? It's excellent. And I was like,
that's basically it. Yeah, and the education system, free.
The terrifying thing is the disparity. You look at the figures they publish of the difference between the most well-off and the least well-off in any country.
That's huge,
and we are absolutely at the bottom
we're
of that
almost
list.
America.
And the ONS came out, Office for National Statistics came out with a tweet saying that 24% of Britons reported they could not afford to keep themselves warm in November and December. Now, 24% of the population can't afford to keep warm in a country which is cold. There's something wrong with your society. So you get more money to go to the poor, or services.
I don't want to be like, I'll just get struck down by both of you, but I find those stats always a bit like someone ticked a box to say that, but there's definitely huge inequality, but I'd love to know the real stat. Maybe it's higher. I'm just saying, this information, when people give it to you.
I saw a stat today about the average price people are paying for energy in different countries in Europe. And most of Europe, pretty much all of Europe, per year, the average price is 800 and something euros or whatever, right? UK, it's 2,000 and something.
Yeah, and weirdly, even though we were the only ones who for ages were like, Russia, and we Norway are our mates. Norwegian British Chamber or something, where Norway business were very involved in.
But if you're earning, what's an average salary in the UK? 30 something grand?
It's slightly low compared to the
20
cost.
something, 30 something. It's not a lot. And you've got to pay $2,500 grand in energy
almost
bills.
10%
That's insane.
of your gross salary going on energy.
It's just insane.
Yeah, and we've ended up in a dysfunctional society, the UK, because you've swallowed the argument the private sector does everything better.
Yeah.
The private sector doesn't do health better. It doesn't do education better. It doesn't do
Yes, but it makes money for rich people better.
It's fine for rich people.
It only ends up doing better by comparison because the other one's underfunded and falling apart, and can't cope with what it has. It's dispiriting. I find the difficult thing here that the equality is a hugely and it's getting worse. It's getting worse everywhere, but it's getting worse here.
It's getting really bad here. The inequality is terrifying.
And then I know you may have something to say on this, but should we rejoin the EU? We were in the EU, and that actually the people who voted for it were probably a lot of the people suffering with inequality, and it will make the. Just a simple economics. You mean a lot of people that voted for
Brexit?
A simple economics.
Yeah, look, I voted for Brexit. You know why?
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought it would tell the EU they had to get their act together. Instead,
great. Thanks for that, mate.
The British completely fucked it up.
Yeah, we really fucked it up.
Really fucked it up.
Didn't you think after the vote came in, you must think what I thought, that people were like, okay, we voted that, but now let's have a sensible conversation about what that means.
And what
we didn't.
Osborne
We were like,
resigns a couple of days later. You get
David Frost can't even, defend
I don't think
decisions.
Cameron should have resigned. In all honesty, Cameron should have said, okay, it was only by 51%. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about what this means. Let's have some, this is an indicative vote. But it was just like everyone was like, right, that's it.
But we also still can't say.
Stupidly handled, very stupidly handled.
We also still can't say. We've got this kind of insane thing in the UK where we still can't say that there is anything wrong with Brexit.
No, looking at it, the way it's been handled was a mistake. If I'd known what the vote would have gone, I wouldn't have got out of bed.
Yeah.
It was just one of these crazily badly done things. And rather than teaching the EU a lesson,
did you not vote in the Brexit?
You know this. It was my
Did I have
birthday. It was
blanked
the
it out?
23rd of June, which is my birthday.
Fucking Laura.
I was in my underpants most of my birthday, very, very drunk in front of the telly
I
with
wouldn't
friends.
get fired for slapping
I
you,
said
I
I was
would
in my
slap you now.
underpants because weirdly the vote, we stayed up and I was just about awake as the sun came up and then the vote came in and I just happened to remember sitting in my boxers in my socks with my two of my best friends and I mean I was just
had
like,
to be best friends.
I knew it was. I knew what I thought the moment the vote came through. So I kind of did
I
mentally
thought it
abstain.
would lose.
Well, I just
I was doing like
yeah.
a protest vote. And then, holy shit, the no vote won? Oh, Jesus, this is going to be
So
fun.
you think we should rejoin?
Yes, rejoin the trading bloc.
Yeah. Why don't we join like Iceland? Just join the customs union.
That's all you need to be part of.
Yeah. But you'd keep our laws and our pounds and our
Yeah.
whatever. Don't
And
worry about all that.
For Christ's sake, don't join the euro. That's the big.
No.
That's
Because
the big
what you
mistake
have to
of
have
the
is free
European
movement.
Union.
Yeah, free movement of people. Do you think the euro is not great?
The euro is a disaster.
Really?
The
Yeah,
funny
I'm
thing
with you
is,
on that.
the euro is the only thing you can find right-wing
Why
economists.
is it a disaster? Yeah, tell us.
Because what the euro meant was you have a country that can't produce a currency. Okay, all the countries, England produces its own currency.
Yeah.
All the countries of Europe can't produce their own currency. Giving away the capacity to create a currency is the stupidest thing.
Because it's your ability to print money.
Yeah,
Some people
I mean-
argue that's how Germany won. I mean, the funny turn of history,
Yeah.
people would say that is outrageous these days because I love the Germans. I think they're an amazing country. But, it's fucking crazy that
You have
70
found
years
it on the
ago,
what, yeah.
they did it by war. That is not that long ago,
Yeah.
So is there anything that you think is bullshit in business?
In business,
Well, I think
3 months reporting. Okay, the whole stockholder value, that whole focus. You go back to your German argument. The reason Germany works better corporately is they have what they call the Aufsichtsrat, which is a parallel board that has members of unions and the community and suppliers in terms of managing a company.
No way, I didn't
that gives
know
you
that.
a longer term perspective. And the Britain 3 months reporting. That's one reason you guys have gone down the gurgler. And
3
Germany
months
still
reporting
functions.
to who?
You got to
Shareholders.
increase your stock price every 3 months. That's short-term
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah.
That's destructive for the long term.
Oh, so what in terms of the city and all of that they should start saying is it not getting there that they've now got to report on multi levels or something?
No, that's all bullshit. I mean, the ESG, most of what's been done in ESG is just nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
it is
haven't
nonsense.
taken it on seriously.
Yeah.
It's all for the sake of appearances rather than really changing how a company behaves.
How would Britain change how it's operating though? Introduce the board thing like Germany?
Well, I think for a start, you wouldn't run down your apprenticeship system.
Oh, it's
and you
ridiculous.
look at how dreadful apprenticeships are, and how you've got rid of all your tertiary, your skilled workforce training. What we used to call the technical and further education in Australia, whatever they could call here, they got turned into universities. So and it's all about status. It's not about actually knowing polytechnics. Yeah, you go to Germany. I mean, being an apprentice machine tool maker, you're working on serious technology.
But do you not take we discussed this in Martin Wolf when he was saying how we should avoid the romanticism that we're going to return to what Britain was 200 years ago. We're really good at life sciences. We should encourage the apprenticeship world of life science, which is kind of university, isn't it?
But if you go back and look at how much of Britain's GDP is manufacturing versus how much is Germany's. I think it was something in the order of 30%, was 25 to 30% of the GDP was manufacturing back in Maggie Thatcher's day. Now it's about 8%. Look at Germany, roughly 30%, but now it's roughly 30%.
Yeah.
Okay, they stuck with the manufacturing side.
Oh, it's ridiculous that we didn't invest in this country.
and I
We're
think
good inventors,
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened in Australia too with Holden, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, Holden
mean-
was a wank, but Australia made the world's first laptop computer.
Did it really?
Called the Donmont Magnum. Okay, I own 3 of them.
The Donmont Magnum.
Magnum.
I think
Magnum.
Australians should get to name everything around the world. It would be so much more fun.
Everything will end in O.
Yeah, well, then it would have, with the Aboriginal the Aboriginal names are the best, but even the Australian names,
Coonabarabran, fantastic
Coonabarabran.
names.
Ah,
They
yeah.
roll off the tongue. They're
and they say,
marvelous.
we do it to make it quicker, and then sometimes they make the word longer, which amuses me.
And Jack, guy becomes Stevie.
Stevie.
I hate it. Yeah.
I was
Steve-O,
watching a doc
yeah.
guy with Steve-O, and he said that he's got to go feed Beano
You can
this
do it well.
afternoon.
You've been there too much, obviously.
This is when we're going to
I've got
ask
loads
you
of
a
time.
series of questions,
Yeah.
get you know you a little better. You've only got 5 seconds to answer each.
Okay.
Me and Pippa are not going to interrupt you.
He's going to interrupt. I'm not.
Okay.
D, key of the music. Thank you very much.
What was your first job?
First job, working in the Bank of New South Wales.
I'm not going to interrupt. What was your worst job?
Working for a bunch called Trash and Treasure. Weekly putting out, people for selling secondhand junk and stuff like that. Was great for the people, but the person who ran it was a total asshole. He'd turn up every week to check in to see what we were doing with shithouse wages. He'd arrive in a Rolls Royce with a different dolly bird on his arm every Sunday. So that was probably the worst job.
Favourite subject at school?
So physics. Yeah. Except I had a lousy
Good
physics
at maths
teacher.
too, were you?
Yeah.
Must have been. What's your special skill?
Seeing through bullshit.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a physicist, but I had 6 years of lousy physics teachers, so I ended up as an economist instead. Or a tennis player.
Teachers make all the difference.
They do.
What did your parents want you to be when you grew up?
Probably an accountant. My dad was, dad was a bank manager.
Was he a bank manager?
He was a bank manager.
Definitely wanted you to be an accountant.
There you go. It was a secure job.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
House of the Rising Sun.
Oh, there is a
classic.
house in New Orleans. Office dogs. Where's he gone?
Office dog?
Business or bullshit?
Huh?
Business or bullshit?
Bullshit. Healthier than business.
Have you ever been fired?
Yes.
Okay, you had to think about that.
Oh, don't write that down. Not going to ask. What's your vice?
It grows on a plant.
Okay. Yeah.
Where did you get fired from?
I could say Kingston University.
What did you do?
Well, I walked
Smoked
into.
weed.
I didn't quite get fired. I resigned. I got me out of the damn job, which I wanted to do. This is really speaking out of turn. But when I got the head of office job as head of school, I was looking forward to getting my office and meeting my secretarial staff. I got no secretarial staff, and my office was 1/3 the size of this room and had a big patch of mold on the wall.
Ew.
It was dreadful, okay? Terrible situation. And I then went back one day, years later. They'd kicked us out of the building. The Vice-Chancellor had moved inside, and my office as head of school had been turned into a canteen for the Vice-Chancellor's staff, a kitchenette. Oh. And I lost it in front of the staff. I was quite abusive, not at all my normal behaviour. And
you'd had a bad IT day. Maybe.
I had a bad IT day, and I thought, this was my slummy office, and you guys turned it into a kitchenette. I was head of a department of 40 staff supposedly answering to me, and I had this trivial room. You've turned it into a kitchenette. So it was not quite sacked, but by mutual agreement, I left that day.
Yeah, wow.
Fair enough.
Yeah, good. Tick. Did I write anything in? Trash and Treasure. Best company name ever. Do you not think you were just a little bit, it's that you're doing a shit job and he's living the life, and basically if you were, Richard Branson probably shouldn't have his swimming pool, his hookers and his
Richard
Ferrari.
Branson, this guy, it wasn't just the fact he turned up with a dolly bird a different dolly bird every week in a Rolls Royce. Okay, it was also the fact that they used to dock our pay.
Love the phrase dolly bird.
If we people paid $2 to get in or $20 to be a stall holder, and if we made 2 mistakes, like missed 2 people coming inside, our pay got docked.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So as we do,
he was an arsehole. That's what it was.
We started then, hiding how many were coming in to pocket the money for ourselves. Okay, so his, greed towards us made us rapacious towards him. It was bloody awful. I love the people I work with. I love the stall holders and stuff like that. But this guy was an asshole, and the management system meant we behaved criminally to get away from his asshole behaviour.
Love it.
Let's sort of take it back a bit. How did you end up doing what you're doing?
6 years of lousy science teachers. I had a brilliant lecturer, a school teacher in economics called Keating, no relation to the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And he made it brilliantly exciting, and I loved it. And so the mathematical focus I had in physics went across to economics.
I find a good teacher such a fascinating thing.
Huge.
And also, the worst teacher you ever had is probably your best ever teacher. The person who said you never amount to anything. You're a fucking idiot. You never amount to anything. I had a couple of, most people have someone in their life they hated who did that.
Just a couple.
And you think to yourself, what
I'm
think
gonna get
now
in
is,
with that bastard.
did they know what they were doing? Because they had an
They
enormous
probably hated you,
impact.
Andy.
They probably hated you. But the weird thing is, they're the ones, you're like, you give me the daggers right now. People's like, oh, he's been well annoying
Revenge
in this
of the youth.
podcast.
No, I'm sure they were just trying to boost you up.
No, I don't hate them as much as that person used to. Yeah, but the inspiration of a good teacher too.
Oh,
someone
huge.
comes in and they're like, right, and they just start.
Like this guy, Tim
it.
Keating, also taught us English. And one thing we got to get to read was Chaucer's Canterbury Tales.
Yeah.
In the original Old English. Okay? And I remember going back home and trying to read this damn thing and just walking in completely puzzled. Tim walked into the room, sat cross-legged on the desk and started to read it
If
with
you
the
read
correct,
it out loud,
the
you can hear
correct
it.
Old English accent. And we all looked at each other in shock because we could
wow.
understand it.
Wow.
That was just brilliant. So that's truly inspirational teaching is an incredibly important part of our lives, and we should pay teachers accordingly, and we don't.
What's your long-term goal?
Eliminating economics before it eliminates human society.
Whoa. You
So
think...
you want to eliminate the thing you do?
I actually wrote in Debunking Economics that if all economists on the planet committed harakiri, including me, the world would be a better place.
You feel that strongly that
I
they're
do.
misleading government?
They have led us into they lead us
Maybe
into all the
just take
financial
sleeping
crisis.
pills.
Do they-
Harakiri
you
seems-
think the economists are leading us into the financial crisis,
Yeah.
not the greed of humanity, you know?
Well, they tell us it doesn't matter. They say what causes financial crises doesn't matter.
They give us
And
the
therefore
Do they? Is that what they say?
encourage the bad behaviour that leads into the crises.
they give us the ammunition to do it.
Yeah, I think that's what
They're the enabler.
Yeah.
my expression is. You might say fossil fuel companies are fighting the war against, doing anything on climate change, but the bullets are being crafted by economists. Everything
Wow,
they quote
that's
comes
deep.
from economists.
That's really deep that you say that. No wonder you're not so popular at the
Oh,
Economist
absolutely.
drinking
They hate
party.
me.
Can't imagine why.
Used to being hated by economists.
gee, I've noticed I didn't get the Christmas party invitation, but Jeffrey, what's happened on the Christmas party invitation? Well, you know, mate,
You're
you've
an
been
arsehole.
I
fucking
tend not to
pissing
get invited
everyone
to
off.
those sorts of parties,
Yeah.
and I'm
What-
very happy about that.
What's the most misunderstood thing about what you do?
God, that takes more than 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, we're no longer on the 5-second bit. You're fine.
Okay. The fact that you don't, this is going to sound a bit technical, but you don't need microeconomics. Okay, mainstream economics is based on the theory of the individual firm, individual consumer. We should throw it all away.
Right.
We can work from the top down. We can,
it's
we
very
can
interesting
model
point.
the economy from macroeconomics itself. We don't need
In a
micro.
mathematical way. Forget
Yeah.
about the human bit. That's that film
Human bit's
Pi,
not as
isn't
important.
it? In every system, there's
One
a
of
thing.
Marx's greatest phrases was said, men make their own history, but not in times and circumstances of their own choosing.
Yeah.
And the times and circumstances dominate what happens. Our behaviour in the individual scheme of things is relatively trivial. And that's the way that I model the economy, and I
like
get it
It's
right.
deep. There's something very silly that's hit me that's sort of amusing me that might give you a bit more respect in these
We should
circles.
go for some of the other stuff after this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I left my back at the flat.
Ah, yeah, well, exactly. You've very sensibly got a thing to keep the air clear. You should get a Darth Vader kit.
Oh,
And
the-
then you could
Darth
turn up
Vader
at
is
the
definitely it,
Economist.
yeah. Actually,
And then you have to pick people up and go, do you not know the world is ending?
I would love to be able to do that, I must
Wouldn't that
admit.
be fantastic? And they'd be like, fucking hell, Jesus. What are you doing about climate change then?
I'm writing a report for Carbon Tracker, and it's for the finance sector, and telling them how they've been conned by economists. And because they have a fiduciary duty towards particularly pensioners, they have to change what they're doing on climate change advice, or they could be sued for breaching financial fiduciary duties. That's the one I'm working
They're
on
going
right
to
now.
love that report.
Oh, I'm gonna
They're
go
gonna
down
be
like-
And you're
thrilled.
getting a Darth Vader outfit,
I'm getting a
and you're
Darth
going to
Vader
go
outfit.
down there and kick some fucking ass.
Absolutely. I'll need to get mechanical arms rather than my own ones these days to do any real damage.
There's, you can on Quest, you can meet the virtual reality thing. You can meet Darth Vader in this game, and I have to say, I challenge any man to it because you're kind of, it's virtual reality, it's ridiculous. Yeah, let's go meet Darth Vader, and he walks up to you.
Is he
and you're
really
like,
scary?
Oh, please,
I
Darth!
would be really scared.
I'm sorry, Darth. He's massive. What are you
you do?
most excited about?
Life. Life will out. Life will survive. Okay, back to George Carlin's comment.
I thought we just established that life was.
Could be
Life's going to survive. Okay, we're not that powerful. We're not going to destroy life on this planet, and that's
Just
the most
Homo
exciting
sapiens.
thing on the planet. Yeah, Homo sapiens might disappear.
Well, it's true.
Life will
Even if
continue.
it's really bad, some bacteria don't even need like oxygen. Life
The
will
lizard
continue.
people will
There'll
be
be
fine.
tardigrades will take over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but life will
thought.
continue.
They're so tiny.
What's your biggest error, do you think, in your career? What's the biggest misstep you've taken in your career?
In my career, Doing a law degree.
Yeah, I didn't do one, but we would have been a mistake.
Yeah. I never used it.
Well, it's like we don't really like to hire people who've done accountancy at university.
What made you do a law degree? When you were all my thrilled with economics?
My choice was I wanted to do engineering and economics. That was my combination.
Oh, I didn't.
And when I went to see a career advisor, there was no such combination.
No.
And he said, well, do law.
Weirdly, I managed to do...
I know, be bored for 3 years. You'll love it.
It was so fucking boring, honest. People think law is about logic. Law is about finding reasons to distinguish your client from all previous cases. Yes, Your Honour, I know that on the law and the precedent, my client is completely guilty. But this case can be distinguished by others because my client has three nostrils.
It sort of depends what kind of law I am a lawyer. I should have mentioned
full
that.
Transparency.
I did not do a law degree. I did archaeology, ancient history, and Greek.
Yeah.
But the kind of law I do now is all about being told what effectively is being told what people want to achieve and then interpreting it into language that makes it work.
Well, actually, I ended up, the way I got into the warning about the financial crisis was I was approached to be an expert witness in a case on predatory lending. And in that situation, the fact that I had the law background was useful. So I'm not putting it down completely, but most law ends up being, most of my friends who did law or accounting were bored.
Nobody I know that did a law degree is still a lawyer.
Yeah. It tends to be a bridge to something else. Yeah.
What's your passion outside of work?
Tennis, which I could have played professionally. So I love I'm a Federer freak. There's two people that I'm a fan of. One is Federer, and with reservations, another is Elon Musk.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love Elon Musk. Yeah. Oh, he's done amazing things. What's your worst advice you've ever been given?
Do law.
Love it. I love it. Ding. Congratulations. Good advice is accountancy, by the way, if you're having to give out career advice.
I'll give you a little tell. You'll love this particular one. I led a student revolt at Sydney University in 1973 over the teaching of economics. Successful. We actually got a new department
The year
created.
I was born.
I had a whole bunch of accountants who were part of the group, fabulous guys, mainly migrants, who did the best part of a research report I worked with as well. I went to a restaurant one night. There they were, the same bunch of guys, for a bucks night. So they asked me like 10 years after university.
Stag night for the English listeners.
Okay. About 5 years after university, what have you done? And I explained what I've been doing. And then there was silence. And one of the guys said, I wish I'd done what you've done. And they all agreed. And I said, hang on a sec, guys, look on the negatives. I'm unemployed right now. I haven't got a car or a house. Don't even have a girlfriend, let alone married. Look on the negative side of what I've done. And the kingpin of the group said, Steve, we would still all rather have done what you have done.
Yeah.
How boring were their lives as accountants because of that. So safety was a trap.
How boring were their lives as accountants. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I'm probably taking a long time to think that through.
Take a long time. That's a good question.
Yeah, I think it was to follow your heart. I had one person telling me in a big gap, do I take a safe career or a dangerous one? He said, you don't want to take stuff which makes you safe because you'll be bored later in life.
Yeah.
And that's
take risks when you're young too.
Take risks and continue taking them, which I've continued doing, and I'm still standing.
Great advice. What advice would you have given your younger self?
Probably just do what you've done. I made all sorts of mistakes in my life.
God,
absolutely.
That's nice.
Okay, but I've enjoyed my life and I continue enjoying it. So I've made mistakes definitely, but
it all adds to life's rich tapestry.
For some reason, you're free of thought. So while we talk about the sheep and the crowd that we all want to we're all sort of in the dogma of, and I say it's less about that. None of us have enough time to think about it. I don't have enough time to think about every news report, whether it's true or not. So I just go along with the mainstream. It's hard to change the channel, effectively. But it's within your own life, you've been very independent. You've got You've got the balls of free thought. So that comes from somewhere, and you probably base it in
Sorry,
empirical.
The balls of free thought.
It's good, yeah, I like it.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The balls of
No,
It
but
could be
there's
the vagina of free thought
there's
as well,
something
but
in you
still.
that's not afraid to be the odd one out. That probably goes back all the
And
way to
that's-
being very young.
And that's true. Most of my friends at school were migrants, for example.
Interesting. Where you went to school in Sydney?
Yeah, I went to Sydney, Catholic school, which is the religious version of a public school.
Yeah, they're the good ones.
Okay. And
The bad ones.
And I remember having some of the white guys saying, you'd hate to find you have any, non-white genes inside you. And I said, I'd actually be quite pleased to find.
And when
I
you
have
say
that.
this would be Aboriginal or this would be just multicultural?
Anything at all. I mean, it was
Yeah.
quite possibly some Aboriginal in my background because my family comes from Western New South Wales,
Right.
which is a possibility. I would actually like to find that out. But I enjoy diversity, and I don't mind being part of a minority, or being a minority in a majority that's different to me. And I think that's partly why I've been successful.
You almost feel a minority yourself then.
I'm a minority in economics, almost a minority of one.
A minority with a flamethrower, apparently, to the entire thing.
I have a few friends who help me with the
fucking
flamethrower.
Steve's lost it again. Don't invite him to this year's Christmas party. Not with that Darth Vader
Not
suit
the
again.
Economics Christmas party.
He
Oh,
almost
no.
strangled Bernie.
Have you got any recommendations for us on what to read or watch or listen to?
In economics, I'd obviously recommend my own book, The New
Of course
Economics
you would.
Manifesto.
Anyone
Tell
you
us what it's called so that we can...
The New Economics Manifesto. I'd also recommend reading a totally obscure book for those who really want to know this stuff called Dynamic Economic Systems by a guy called John Blatt, B-L-A-T-T.
Will it make my head hurt?
Huh?
Will it make my head hurt?
Potentially, yes, but also your head, I think, has got a fair bit of muscle inside there, so you'd give it a
say
good
that.
try. But Blatt, this is a lovely story. Blatt was a professor of mathematics, and he was twice nominated for the Nobel Prize in Physics in the 1950s. He wrote the reference on quantum mechanics, and he was at the University of New South Wales. And one other guy at the University of New South Wales was also nominated for the Nobel Prize in economics, a guy called Murray Kemp. He's actually a good friend of mine, a great tennis player. Murray,
The important things.
Important point.
Murray regarded John as his only peer because he's the only guy at the university to get nominated for the Nobel Prize. So he invited John along to a seminar. And John was Austrian and famously rude. Okay? So, Murray finished giving his presentation and then spoke over the audience to John and said, "What do you think?" And John said, "That is the greatest load of rubbish that I have sat through in my professional career. If this is advanced economics, there's something terribly wrong with economics. I intend finding out what it is. Good day."
Wow.
So he wrote a brilliant book called Dynamic Economic Systems, and I can take credit for the fact that it's now being republished.
He basically says you're full of shit.
Full of shit, and he did it mathematically.
Now we're going to do the quickfire round, favourite part of the show. D, cue the music. So we're going to reel off some terms, and you've got to tell us whether you think they are business or bullshit. You're going to put up the sign, and we're allowed to in question. We're allowed to, if we want, if we're like, if you feel strongly. You can talk if you want to, but, you've got the visual aids. Let's go.
Going viral.
Bullshit. Yeah, I don't even know what going viral means. NFTs. Bullshit. You think they're bullshit, NFTs?
Definitely bullshit.
You think?
They're a Ponzi scheme. They only got a price for
I'm
people who pay
so
for
with
them.
you, man.
But what about when they're like a song or like I'm an artist and you get like a certificate of ownership?
If you get the NFT and nobody else can play, Sweet Home Alabama, okay, then that's definitely business.
I can't believe that's the thing you picked.
Why not? It's about the same as bullshit as NFTs.
Business plans.
Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Oh, I wanted to ask you about this earlier. Excellent. Universal income.
No, sorry, no, business.
Do you think that you're into it?
Yeah, I am.
I'm with you.
So it separates
Tell me
from
about
them
your
and
view, because there's lots of versions. There's just like have a little bit of income to help people, the really bad bit, or have a
the
lot.
expression that I know people who started the whole scheme in America, and their argument is not paying you to do nothing, it's paying you to do anything. It gives people freedom to be creative.
And that's what
Otherwise
people
they're trapped
argue.
where they are.
And the fact that it costs a lot of money and
It makes money that people can spend. Okay, you want demand inside there. Otherwise, what do homeless people buy?
yeah, because even homeless people will get it.
Yeah,
that would
that's
be
right.
good. Well, you'd
Yeah.
end homelessness in a night.
Yeah, pretty much. They'd be able to afford to pay rent and so on.
Team outings.
Teen outings.
Bullshit.
No, with you in the Darth Vader outfit, they're
Definitely,
fucking
yeah.
a little more than bullshit. They're terrifying.
They have ways of making.
Microdosing.
I haven't tried it yet.
There's still time, Steve. There's still time. Think tanks. Bullshit.
Are you a miniature think tank?
I am, probably. I want to start my own called the Keen Institute.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I wouldn't be publishing bullshit.
Yeah, think tanks, you think they mostly come up with
Most of them
bullshit?
put out bullshit these days, particularly if they're economists, then they're definitely bullshit.
Yeah, so I love this whole, right, no more economists. Who should we have on the show then for climate change? Get some scientists on
Get
here.
some scientists.
Or mathematicians.
Tim Lenton. Get Tim Lenton from me.
Can you hook us up? Hook us up with Tim
absolutely.
Lennon.
Tim's a great bloke. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
great.
fantastic.
Yeah, do it. Definitely happy to do that.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love this one.
MBAs.
You
MBAs,
ever heard of a database program called DBase2?
He's holding up bullshit for the audience.
Bullshit, okay. DBase2 was designed by a guy called Wayne Ratliff. Wayne Ratliff was a NASA engineer, and he designed DBase to make money out of the football pools, with the idea of artificial intelligence at the time. His company was taken over by Harvard MBAs and destroyed it, called Ashton Tate, and this software disappeared. He came off the plane. I interviewed him in Sydney when he came out to Australia, spewing about Harvard MBAs. So definitely bullshit.
I like that.
Breakfast meetings.
Okay. Before your mind gets locked in.
You eat breakfast with a meeting?
I do, yeah, but it's
With
always
the
the
eggs.
same
It's
thing.
always like the eggs and
Usually in yogurt. I'm sorry, I'm boring.
That's why you don't mind breakfast meeting. It's obviously the fried egg and the bacon and
That's
the
what I
bacon
get out of,
eaters. The people like me who want to have a good old fry up at breakfast. I'm going to have breakfast. Let's have breakfast. You know, and then I've got to eat, and I don't enjoy that. You know, but muesli's the
It's
secret.
easy, yeah.
Flexible working. Flexible working.
Bullshit. There's a lot of bullshit going on.
I'm afraid
in
so.
this.
Yeah.
Society's full of it.
Hot desking.
Definitely bullshit.
Asking favors.
It's humans are all about favours.
Yeah.
Humans are based on
That was
doing
business.
stuff for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Do you think
That's
Bitcoin's
definitely
bullshit?
I should have bought it when Max
It's
Kaiser.
another
Everyone
Ponzi
thinks this.
scheme.
Yeah.
I could have bought 100 of them for £10. I'm sorry I didn't do it. But it's a Ponzi scheme.
You think?
It'll have to fall over.
The reason I was given, and I think there's a lot of sense to that, and I loved one of the main comments on Coinbase, which is, I wish I could go back to like 2014 and repeatedly punch myself in the face. But the reason I was given that it's useful is, you should have governments backing currencies, blah, blah, blah. But there's lots of countries that go into fucking civil war, don't have a currency or whatever. And it becomes a sort of non-governmental vestige of currency, you know?
Yeah, if they hadn't based it on 10 minutes of processing time to generate the nonce and
Right.
the huge energy costs, then that would be okay. It's the energy costs that are going to bring it
cost
unstuck.
is a bitch.
When we realise we're using too much energy, the first thing that'll be shut down is Bitcoin.
Okay, so this is where we give you 30 seconds, Steve, to pitch your company, podcast, book, whatever you want to pitch.
Okay, I'm going to pitch a software package I'm developing called Ravel, which is if you ever used a pivot table.
Oh, yes.
Okay, they're bullshit. And I've worked out a far better way to handle multidimensional data. I'll be launching it in the next 6 months.
Wow.
I want to sell the IP because I'd rather put my time into doing my non-standard economic research. So I'm open to offers. But Ravel will run rings around Tableau, Power BI, et cetera, et cetera. They're primitive compared to what I can do with Ravel. My graphics are primitive right now. That's the part I'm working on. But the underlying power wipes out anything you might do with pivot tables. So anybody using pivot tables, get in touch.
Well, we use them a lot as accountants. I mean, we live off them.
And
They're boring. They're so hard to analyse. Mine's much faster, much easier.
I would just say, don't say you do non-standard economic research. Say you do non-bullshit economic research.
That's
Because
definitely
non-standard
I
throws
actually
you.
might have that as the subtitle for the Keen Institute.
It makes much more sense.
Non-bullshit economics.
You can have it from us.
Because
I tell you what, if I
non-standard
get
is
the
like,
funding-
I'm a weirdo from the state dot.
If I get the funding for the Keen Institute, I promise non-bullshit economics is the
Yeah,
subtitle.
it's not that offensive anymore.
And
apparently.
Steve, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
Patreon and Substack, the main places. So I've got my Patreon is www.patreon.com/ProfSteveKeen, and the Substack is profstevekeen.substack.com. Those are the two best locations.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So there you have it. That was this week's episode of Business Without Bullshit. Very good. Thanks, Pippa. Thanks, Steve. Ciao.